Do you know the football club named Arsenal? Of course, who does not? It is one of the most decorated clubs in the Premier League. In fact, in terms of total number of trophies, Arsenal is the third most successful English club behind Liverpool and Manchester United. But to think none of this may have ever happened if not for one incident, one decision 100+ years ago. What are we talking about? Well, why don't we dive into it? Consider subscribing to our channel. It's free and helps us a ton. Thanks. One of the records that Arsenal and their fans are very proud of is that they haven't been relegated for 105 years and counting. That is, Arsenal hasn't been relegated since coming up in 1919. That's a great record, right? But, yes, there's a but. But what happened in 1919? Under what circumstances were Arsenal promoted all those years ago? Well, that's the story we are going to explore today. As we dive into it, we need a little bit of context, like what situation Arsenal were in at the time. 1886 is marked as the birth of the club, then named Dial Square Football Club, renamed Royal Arsenal a year later. In 1891, they became the first London club to turn professional, and in 1893, they became an LLC, renamed to Woolwich Arsenal. Woolwich Arsenal was the first southern member of the Football League, starting out in the second division and reaching the first division in 1904. Remember this, it'll be an important fact in this story. Now, we aren't going to go through the full journey from here to 1919, but it suffices to say that by 1910, the club was in dire straits, struggling financially due to falling attendances, financial difficulties among the munitions workers, and the arrival of more accessible football clubs elsewhere in the city. Imagine this. In 1893, when they joined the league, they were London's only professional club. In just 15 years, 4 more clubs, namely Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspurs, Fulham and Clapton Orient, were all part of the Football League, with more Southern League clubs such as Millwall Athletic and Crystal Palace and other amateur sides like Clapton and Dulwich had quickly eaten into Arsenal's support, and they no longer retained that unique position in London. They were very close to bankruptcy, and in 1910 went into voluntary liquidation before being bought out by a consortium of businessmen, the largest shareholder being the property magnate Sir Henry Norris, who was also the Fulham chairman. This is another piece of information that's noteworthy, the change of guard in Arsenal's ownership. Sir Henry Norris was well aware of the challenges posed by Woolwich Arsenal's current situation and was desperate to improve revenue. Arsenal's location was particularly a hindrance to their growth, as getting to Manor Ground, their then home ground, was a pain. To improve their situation, Norris first tried a merger of Arsenal with his other club, Fulham. Football League, however, blocked the merger. So Norris was forced to abandon the plans of merger and started to look into moving the club away from Plumstead, where Manor Ground was located. He eventually chose a location in Highbury, North London, and despite objection from the Woolwich-based fans and Highbury residents, he saw the move through, spending a reported £125,000 in building a new stadium. Before the stadium could be completed, Woolwich Arsenal were relegated in 1912-13, finishing bottom of the league. They eventually moved to the new stadium in the 1913 close season, and then 1914 brought another change to the club's name. They became the Arsenal. The move to Highbury bore fruits immediately, as the club's average attendance in the first season there was 23,000, up from 11,000 at Manor Ground. However, the on-field performances were yet to catch up. This brings us to the year 1919. Football was just returning from the hiatus due to the war. The war to end all wars, as it was dubbed at the time, had consumed 750,000 young British men. While Arsenal's problems couldn't even compare to the kind of devastation, they nevertheless were problems. Arsenal had finished the 1914-15 season, the last season before the war, at the 6th position, and they had a team that could fight their way back into the first division if the situation were normal. But the situation was anything but normal. While war consumed many, the remaining players of Arsenal were now 5 years older, and there was no telling if in 1919 they had a team that could do the job. The first division football felt like a fevered dream for them at the time, but then an opportunity presented itself out of nowhere, no less due to their chairman, Henry Norris. In 1919, the Football League decided to expand the first division from 20 to 22 teams. Now, extension of the league was nothing new and had happened several times since the establishment of the league in 1888. The usual procedure for extension was to retain the bottom 2 clubs in the first division from the previous season while promoting the top 2 clubs from the second division. Despite the forced hiatus due to the war, there was no reason for the procedure to change, let alone having to discuss it. Everybody assumed this would remain the case. It was an amazing coincidence that the 2 teams that ended in the bottom 2 places in the 1914-15 season were the 2 London clubs, Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspurs. Norris, who had received his knighthood in 1917 and became a Tory MP in 1918, showed remarkable political judgment and used the 8 months between the end of the war and the AGM in mid-1919 to canvass the other major clubs and other influential friends in the game. Another ray of hope was the allegations of match fixing, especially the game between Manchester United and Liverpool. Manchester United had beaten Liverpool 2-0 to finish 18th, but had they lost, they would have finished below Chelsea in 19th. This created an uneasiness about the finish of the 1914-15 season. To be clear, neither Chelsea nor Tottenham were ever accused of match fixing, nor there were any suggestions to that effect. Norris was desperate for first division status. While what Norris told the other chairman has never been revealed, his desperation for first division football and the risk to his enormous investment must have persuaded enough of them. I mean, for all the investment in the new stadium and the team, all he had was second division football. Leslie Knighton described his chairman Norris's technique at the time. His influence was enormous. He would speak to an important person there, suggesting a favor, remind a certain financier who was interested that he had once done him good and been promised something in return. So while everybody was thinking about the usual procedure to take place, there was something else being cooked up. When the AGM convened, Norris's strategy became clear. It stands to believe that everything that happened must have been agreed with league president John McKenna, a close friend of Norris and the owner of Liverpool, in advance. First off, Chelsea were retained with no discussion. There was no vote on their position, partly due to the possibility that had McKenna's own club, Liverpool, beaten Manchester United, Chelsea would have been ahead of United and possibly in a non-relegation spot. So, McKenna proposed Chelsea's re-election and everyone accepted it. Then Derby and Preston, the number 1 and number 2 from second division respectively, were elected to the first division without any debate either. Everything was going as everyone was expecting it to go. You got the first and second from the second division elected to the first division, while the bottom 2 clubs from the last season would retain their position, right? Except that's not what happened. McKenna dropped a bombshell, making a brief speech that Arsenal be given the remaining first division place because of their service to the league and their longevity, particularly pointing out that Arsenal had been in the league 15 years longer than Spurs. Anybody could see through this argument being nonsense, as the league was run on merit and not the more experienced clubs being given the higher position. If the latter were true, Wolves, who were part of the league 4 years longer than Arsenal, should have been a more appropriate choice. Spurs chairman Charlie Roberts found himself to be entrapped in what was a baffling turn of events at the AGM. Nevertheless, the vote was taken. Arsenal got 18, Spurs got 8, Barnsley got 5, Wolves 4, Forest 3, Birmingham 2 and Hull 1. It is notable that Arsenal got less than half of the total votes, so if Spurs had gotten advanced notice, they could have persuaded the clubs that stood no chance of being elected to withdraw. The vote, however, was clear. Arsenal were promoted to First Division while Tottenham got relegated. To this date, it remains a mystery how all this happened. The reason for why McKenna supported Norris is to this date a mystery. The only plausible explanation has been that it had something to do with the late results in the 1914-15 season that we have alluded to earlier. For many years, rumors swirled that there may have been exchange of significant sums of money involved. However, nothing has ever been discovered to lend credence to this rumor, and maybe there never ever will be. Naturally, Spurs were bitter about everything that transpired, but let their talking be limited to football. They smashed 102 goals en route, winning the second division title in the 1919-20 season, earning their spot back in the first division right after. But the bitterness didn't subside and only grew, unparalleled by any other rivalry in the English game. To this date, the North London Derby can be said to be one of the fiercest derby games, irrespective of the club's positions on the table. It's difficult to say how everything would have panned out if Arsenal were not promoted in that year. Would they have made it out of the second division eventually? Or would they have languished in the second division, maybe never to come back up? Was there any corruption involved in Arsenal's promotion? No conclusive proof of wrongdoing has ever come to light, though other aspects of Norris's financial dealings unrelated to the promotion controversy have fueled speculation on the matter. Norris resigned as chairman and left the club in 1929, having been found guilty by the Football Association of financial irregularities. Maybe we'll never know, but Arsenal's promotion all those years ago is just another fascinating story of football away from football. And thanks to that, Arsenal now has a 105-year running streak of being in the top division of English football. Thank you for watching. Like if you liked it, share if you find it worthy, and subscribe for more content like this. This is Salty Football.